Welcome, children, to the inaugural episode of that timeless classic of instructional mask painting series, plural. How do you paint a mask with Mikey Sevier? I know, you might say, how can the first episode of a series that hasn't been produced yet be a timeless classic? Well, in the famous words of one Walter Elias Disney, because I said so, you commie. And who, in this case, is the proverbial I who did the so saying? Well, none other than me, your horror host, mask maker friend, Mikey Sevier. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. Don't mention it. On this episode, we'll be taking a trip down through the Sevier family crypt, right into the heart of SPOOKSHOW Monster Masks HQ, where I paint my rubber abominations with the utmost care, zen-like concentration and bubbling fervor. On the Lazy Susan tonight is my Santy Claus mask, and I'm extremely excited, because he's the perfect example for our subject, colon. Well, I wasn't supposed to say colon. Colon. It's just a colon. It's not a colon. It's a punctuation mark. Right there. Okay, this joke is going nowhere. The subject tonight for our show is latex paint with depth. Some people poo-poo latex-based mask paint because they think it gives a flat look to your monster, but this is nonsense. Latex masks require a flexible paint that will stretch with the rubber, or else they stand chipping and flaking with wear. We're going to be using my recipe for our latex paint. I didn't invent it. This is just how I do it. Start with liquid latex. I use the same casting latex that I make my masks with. Alternately, you can buy smaller amounts online. I like monstermakers.com's latex paint base. I'd stay away from latexes formulated for use on the human face. They tend to be too thin. You want something with some body. Don't we all? To that, add acrylic paint or inks. I like Liquitex paint and FW inks until the color is about 3 shades shy of the saturation you're ultimately going for. What do I mean by that? Latex, when liquid, is almost white. It dries closer to clear when applied very thinly, as we are about to. So you have to mix your colors lighter to compensate for the darkening that will occur. If you're unsure, do a patch test. Put a little swipe or dab of your paint on a scrap of latex or some white paper and dry it with a hairdryer. You'll be surprised at how much it darkens and saturates in color. Be careful, as you can mix up way too much paint in a jiffy. Good news is it stays forever if tightly lidded. Ultimately, your ratio of latex to pigment should be about 70% latex to 30% paint. Maybe all the way even up to 50% latex to 50% paint. Now, once you have your color, add water until you get a consistency about like whole milk. Maybe between whole and half. Point is, make sure it's just thin enough to get through your airbrush. The Pache H seems to be the standard airbrush that everybody's using nowadays, but you can use those Harbor Freight cheapies or some other siphon feed type airbrush with a bigger hole in the tip with a wide spray area. This latex is not the paint you want to put through your good gravity feed Iwata Detail Pro 962 or whatever. As it is, you should still rinse and backflow your paint cup with water after each color, and pull the bits of paint from the inside and the tip. Use toothpicks to swirl around the nozzle. The latex will stick to itself and to the toothpick as it peels off. Yay! Now we have our paint. Let's get to painting. Holy bats! We're talking about depth in our paint job. For Santy's hair, we're going to be applying an undertone of blue to all of the down-facing, shadow-casting areas. Ready? Go! I'm beginning by edging around all the hairy areas, like coloring in a coloring book. My brush nozzle is barely open to limit the flow, and I spray with graceful, confident arcs, moving quickly, not allowing paint to overwet any area by staying still. Then I try to catch all of those down-facing, shadow-casting areas, as we're calling them. I want to hit all of these angles with the blue undertone. So, I'm angling my brush down and pointing up. Shadows have a blue cast to them. That is what we are mimicking here. We're also doing a great deal to limit the amount of yellow latex that will show through in the finished mask. The blue undertone will counteract that. Now for the mug. We're using a color that's almost fuchsia for the undertone. This is gonna look nuts, but stick with it. This will replicate the look of translucency in the flesh. Blood just under the surface. Again, I'm moving with intention and a certain elan, if I do say so. Following the face. I'm not worrying about overspray at this point. I'm just laying it down like it wants to be there. I know it looks like a Hanna-Barbera color scheme. Huckleberry claws, Magilla Santella. Now, we apply white over the blue undertone. And this time I'm really hitting the highlights, all the up-facing angles. Covering the blue a bit, letting it live where it feels right. Letting it show through a little. I don't know if you can see it, but the overall impression is of a pure white that darkens into bluish shadows, rather than yellowish nicotine ones. Nobody wants a nicotine Santy, okay? Watch what happens when I spray this Caucasian flesh tone over everything. I purposely made it more green than orange. Caucasian flesh tone is made of yellow, red, white and blue or green in varying quantities, and sometimes a touch of black to desaturate it. I made this the color of yuppie khaki pants because when you spray it over the fuchsia, you get a wonderful pull from reddish to greenish that, when done with exacting intention, nicely emulates the translucency of white people's skin. This is a very mid-20th century theme park animatronic way of painting. Fast and effective. So, you know how I wasn't worried about the overspray? Now we fix any overspray around the hairline with a soapy paintbrush and some of the latex paint we made. Latex will stick to hair and not let go, as any mask maker will tell you, and brushes are made of hair, so normally you try to paint with latex and you wind up with a huge rubber booger on the end of your brush, or what used to be your brush. Okay, so dip your brush in some water, rub it on a bar of soap, pinch off the sides, and you're good to paint with latex-based paint. That's an old Dick Smith tip. Dick Smith would take a wet bar of soap and stick down eyebrows or a section of hair on the scalp with it. Just rub the bar on the hair and press it flat, and then safely paint latex over the hair without worrying about stickage. P.S. This info is provided in good faith, and no warranty is expressed or implied by Dick Smith or Mikey Sevier, okay? Okay. 2 layers with the paintbrush covers everything. Same latex paint on the eyeballs. So this looks great as is, I think. This is all latex. We could lightly dust a bit of latex rouge here or there and spray on some little blue irises and he'd be done. You know, you could go play in the yard. Get out of here, kid. Have fun. And he'd be safe and good to go for, until the mask decomposes. But instead, let's learn a new trick, okay? I'm mixing a red tone with FW inks, acrylic inks, alcohol, and water. Literally a few drops of each. This makes a stain. It will literally stain the latex. It's so thin. This technique is great for modulating color gradations, mottling skin tones, staining teeth, doing aging effects. You can apply it on, and then you can brush it off again with a little alcohol. You can blend it like. I'm going pretty hard on this guy because he's a naughty Santy, and I'm giving him some rosacea. But look at the nice effect of rosiness you can get when you keep your layers thin and build it up. Thin is the key word here. You want to keep your inks thin. They will crack off if too thick and not bonded to the surface with an adhesive. But that, my friends, is for another episode. Inks must be thin and they must be sealed or they'll rub off. I'm just painting the eyes on thinly with acrylics. If this mask were thinner, I'd use latex or something that flexes, but this guy is THICCC, so this small amount of acrylic should stay put. How do you seal a mask? How do you seal a mask? If there weren't any inks over our latex, we'd be good to go. But since there are, we must seal the surface. I use Liquitex Gloss Varnish mixed with Liquitex Matte Medium 50-50 with just enough water added to spray it. It's pretty flexible, bonds well to the latex, and has a nice satin finish that saturates the color a bit and gives it a lifelike sheen. If the finish is too glossy, I'll up the ratio of matte, no biggie. The gloss varnish has the added benefit of providing some UV protection, so I always seal with it, unless I'm making something for blacklight or glow in the dark. Also, for a future episode. Now, I'm so glad I sealed that rosacea in, because the next layer could have potentially re-wet all the ink I just so lovingly brushed on. This Santa needs soot. Once again, I'm using FW inks and alcohol, a little H2O. I'm using 70% alcohol here though. If I were to use 99%, it might melt the Liquitex sealant. Sponging it on for a sooty look. I don't want it to be drippy. Another layer of sealant. And now, blood. Excuse me. Blood. And now blood. Okay. I'm in the minority in that I like my blood rather fresh and bright and opaque. This is just more FW inks, processed magenta, fire red, and a tiny speck of sepia, mixed into the Liquitex gloss and thinned with a drop of water. So my blood, color, Liquitex gloss, a little bit of water, boom, there you go. Glossy blood. Who cares? I do. Gloss the eyes with 5-minute epoxy. Not too much. So there he is. Naughty Santa Claus. We've taken a blank latex pole to an initial state of deliciousness with all latex paints, and then slutted him up with the addition of acrylic inks and varnishes. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, share, comment below, and follow the links in the description to my online store and Instagram page. Once again, I am Mikey Sevier. Until next time. Underlying Sevier Manor, deep inside the family crypt and secret location of SPOOKSHOW headquarters, the ghouls of SPOOKSHOWmonstermasks.com are ready to meet you. Creeps like Sweet Chuck, So Booby Frankenstein, Louis Garou, Dr. Mombi, Virginie, Sir Booby Phantom, Dracula Green, Kong, and the horror host monster maker responsible for the creation of all these latex abominations, Mikey Sevier. Remember, when it comes to fear, it's got to be Mikey Sevier. And Dusty,